I felt like if I stopped the car, I was going to die.
It was 1970, nearly 30 years ago, and Terry Matthews was living in Paris, Illinois, when her abduction story begins. It was the most ordinary of days, but this trip so long ago would change her life forever.
I remember looking out the car window and seeing the sun going down to my right, and it made everything red and green. All the colors were extremely vibrant. And the next thing I knew, I was in the middle of a horrible rainstorm. It was black out, so dark and rainy that I couldn't see the front of my car. And the car was being pulled off the road. So I butted the wheels up against the berm of the road. It's a two-lane road out there, and I was terrified. The next thing I knew, the rain was almost stopping, and I didn't notice what time it was. When I got home, I walked in the door, and my husband was yelling at me, "It's 9:45, where have you been?" And I was very confused, and of course feeling like I had lost my mind. I mean, here I was, you know, over 2 hours missing, and didn't know why.
Since that first experience, Terry Matthews has collected conscious memories of many other incomprehensible occurrences. Her journal is filled with horrifying nightmares, missing time, inexplicable scars, and UFO sightings. Terry always suspected that she might be an abductee, but didn't realize that the night of the freak storm was her link to the abduction experience until she contacted abduction expert David Jacobs.
Most abductees who come to me have what I call an epiphanic event. They have something that is a major triggering event, something that happened, that they remember and they know, and they want to find out what it was. And Terry had this event where she felt she was caught in a tornado, of all things, for a couple of hours.
Once I contacted him, he was very, very careful to warn me that if I looked at this, it would change my life forever.
Terry says she felt compelled to pursue the truth and agreed to a series of hypnosis sessions. The sessions started to unravel the mysteries that surrounded that drive 30 years ago.
Under hypnosis, in research, I discovered that it was an abduction. All I knew was that I was being pulled off the road, and I didn't understand why. Under hypnosis, when I looked at this event, I stopped the car. I looked over, and I saw this huge craft hanging over both sides of the road, just sitting there. And I was watching this thing. It was kind of a blunt silver gray. And I saw 6 beings coming near the car, coming toward me. They were gray, large black eyes. I was just stunned. I was panicked, and I was screaming inside my head because I wanted to get away, but I couldn't scream out loud. It was very frightening. I was terrified. They took me into a room. I was told to disrobe, and I was embarrassed. I didn't want to undress, and yet I couldn't stop. They told me to take my wedding rings off, which I did. And then they led me to a table and laid me down. I remember them telling me that I was either going to have a baby or that I was pregnant. I wasn't quite sure. But what they had done was remove a fetus from me and implanted another, which was really emotionally hard for me.
Oftentimes people have fetuses implanted in them. They have fetuses removed from them. And so the purposes of it, we feel, are the production and manufacture of these hybrid babies, these hybrid beings.
They've gone in with needles through my abdomen. They have gone in through the vagina and taken out small, what looked like fetuses that couldn't possibly survive.
More and more memories of her past abductions resurfaced through hypnosis. Terry became so terrified that for a year and a half, she videotaped herself every night while she was sleeping. She believes that this practice has kept more abductions from occurring, but dealing with the past is an ongoing process.
I have witnessed all of my children at different times being abducted. I can see my daughter being violated. I can see my sons being led, knowing what they're going to have to endure. It is exceedingly traumatic.
This is a phenomenon that is intergenerational. That is to say, if the mother or the father were abducted, the children are probably going to be abductees, from what we can tell. And so we get families of abductees, and that is the rule as opposed to the exception.
Terry has agreed to undergo a particularly difficult regression because this one will probe the genetic agenda of her abductors.
I want to take you back to an event that happened to you when you were around 22 years old in about 1970. You were in a car driving near Paris, Illinois.
It just feels very peaceful.
So you're feeling very nice. The regression that we did with Terry was over an event that happened to her some years ago that we had already done a regression on almost 3 years ago. And she actually remembered a few other minor details of it that we didn't know before.
It's a woman.
You mean a human woman?
She doesn't look normal. Her eyes are big. And she's a hybrid. I know what she is now. She looks strange to me. She looks angry. She has a baby. And I look down and I'm holding the baby. She must have put it in my arms. The baby looked human, although it looked emaciated, like it hadn't eaten well. It was slightly human pink, but mostly gray. It had a face like a human, except the eyes were very large. And despite the fact that the baby was maybe 1 or 2 months old, wrapped in a blanket, and it was handed to me to hold, its eyes were more wise than that of a regular infant. They curl in to be held. This hybrid baby did not. It continued to stare at me.
Well, when you were holding the baby, did they want you to hold the baby in any particular way? Or?
I felt milk leaving my body.
What happens next then?
I don't want her to, but she's taking the baby away.
When they took the baby that she was feeding away, she wanted to follow this woman who had the baby.
It was a very traumatic thing. They told me it was mine, and I didn't believe them at the time. But I kept feeling the loss of it. When the adult hybrid woman took it out of my arms, I cried. At least I wanted to cry. I wasn't able to cry, but that grief was so deep in me. And I never completely understood that. She is taking the baby from me, and I feel anger.
Anger that because...
She doesn't care for this baby. It's not like she's her mother.
All the way up. You can open your eyes if you want. She was kind of reliving it all over again, and she remarked afterwards what a strong emotional reaction she was having, and how she was very much involved with the sequence of events that was occurring to her all over again.
I could have gone my whole life and not redone that again.
Sorry about that.
Sorry. I thought I'd enjoy it, you know?
Well, that's what you sort of said, yeah, but the emotions really weren't there, and which is sort of why I asked you.
No, they were there. That was the problem.
Oh.
When I think about these hybrid children, this is when I really get choked up, because they're the true victims. Because what's being bred out of them is what's in us. Our ability for compassion, our ability to feel, to love. They have to relearn it through us.
Terry Matthews is now leading as normal and as good a life as she has probably ever led, and is happier now than I've ever seen her, and is getting on with her life, even though she is absolutely and positively an abductee.